Another video on my channel, and today we are talking about NextJS. I want to talk about NextJS a little bit because I think a lot of the front-end developers that I know, including myself at some point, really thought that NextJS is a full stack framework. And now I'm not trying to dunk down on NextJS or saying that NextJS is bad or this or that, but I really think for deeper understanding of what a full stack framework is like, I think it's extremely important. I think Next.js is a really good solution for any site that is content oriented, and that's where it belongs, that's where it shines. And also Next.js is very React centric. And the reason why a lot of people kind of like think that Next.js is a full stack framework is for two reasons. I think one is that maybe the definition of full stack is a bit blurred for some. And then the second thing is because of this philosophical direction that React is doing, where it's basically React is trying to kind of like overcome the gap between the client and the server and then kind of like take over everywhere. So this is basically just how things are at the moment. You have your literally just the client, which is like your customer, and then you have the network here in between, right? And then what happens is usually that when the customers make a request, or when your customer make a request, the request comes up from the client, and then that request basically just has to go through the network, and then from the network it comes back on the other side, basically to kind of like land on the server. And I know that this sounds silly, but it's good to understand this, or maybe like think about it that way, because what happens is that your client will have to send the request in a JSON format, and then that JSON format has to go through the network, basically serialized through the HTTP, and then going into the server, and the server is going to take that JSON and do blah, 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 and then maybe the server will send back another JSON format that has to go serialized, go land on the client, and all that stuff. And historically, React has always been on this side of the stack, right? So React was just a library for managing UIs, and it kind of like handled everything on this side of the stack. So basically, after you get that JSON with data, you use React to render things. But that is kind of like no longer the case nowadays, I think. So React not only runs on the client, this way, also React runs on the server. And all right, that's my dog doing weird stuff. Anyway, so React not only runs on the client, also runs on the server, but also React is trying to kind of like overtake this kind of like network chasm between them, right? So it's trying to blur that line. And the way this kind of happens is basically in the Next.js framework, right? Where Next.js framework will make you write code that will run on the client and write code that will run on the server. And then also they have this idea of the server action, where you can kind of like write code that gets called from the client, but also triggers on the server without worrying about that network effect in between. Regardless of how it works, like using TRPC in the middle of whatever it is, so regardless of the technical kind of like explanation of how it works right now, but the result is you can use Next.js to kind of like write code across your client and your server. Now, I think that's good. That's great, actually. You get some other things as well with Next.js, right? You get like, what else do you get with Next.js? You get, what is it called? You get a really solid router. I actually really like the router. So that's, I think it's called file system router. So I heard some people hating on file system routers. I actually think they're a really good idea. So you get file system router. You get really basic middleware support. Middleware support. I have no idea how to spell middleware right now. Anyway, you get really basic middleware support. And I think that's basically it. So you run some, you get some server-side rendering. Obviously, that's what I mean when you got SSR, and you get ISR as well, which is basically incremental in ISR, I think. Yeah, when the data changes, you need to refetch it and then kind of like publish it again and so on. And these are really good kind of like features. Again, I think these features are great for something that runs on static content, and from experience as well. Like using Next.js for static content is absolutely fantastic. And that's my point today, is that regardless of how good this system is, this is not full stack. So I'm gonna make a list of things that are kind of like needed on like running a SaaS or running like a full stack system that Next.js just simply doesn't give you a way of doing it. So right now on your client side, you have all these different things, and you have your state, and you have all these things. So I'm not going to talk even about the client side. I'm just going to talk about the server side. So Next.js basically gives you a way to run server-side code, but there's so much more on the server side that you need to do to be able to call this kind of like framework full stack, right? And let's kind of like go through a list of that. So basically, you need database. So obviously, you need database connections. And when I say this, I mean like the ORM and how you kind of like manage this data. Where does it come from? Where did it go to? And so on. So the first thing I'll say is just database connections in general. And you can think of that as how many connections, the connection pool, and the ORM to connect to that database. So that's one. Second, I think is auth and authorization and authentication. Let me just center this thing. Yep, the second thing I'll say is definitely authorization and authentication, right? And I really think, so basically auth and auth, I'm just gonna write auth and auth for real. So it's authorization and authentication, right? And then not only that, so you need the database connections, you need your authorization and authentication, you also need database migrations. So to manage that as well. Version migrations, extremely important because you can do them or undo them in production if something goes wrong. You also need a mailer system. Basically sending emails for the customers. And most importantly, you need tasks. You need async tasks. Basically, when you want to do something and then you want to do it in the background, and when it's done, you want to send the customer an email to say like, hey, this thing is done. Or you want to do cron tasks as well. And then again, one more time, here we have cron tasks. And then cron tasks are like some things that you need to do regularly, whether it's cleaning up database or sending up emails regularly or cleaning up inactive users, all that stuff. What else do you need on your back end? So your mailer, your authorization, authentication. Auth and auth is twice there. That's not fun. So authorization and authentication basically is extremely important. And then obviously the big ones are basically too many cron tasks. So the big one here, I think this is extremely important. Basically, user management system, right? So not only you do authorization, but then who is the user? When was the last time they logged in? A profile, and information on the user in the system, and so on. And this is actually just scratching the surface. There's still a lot more things to be done on the full stack system. You have also server-side events and the WebSockets. This is basically any live stream connections between your front end and the back end. Now, I know what's happening in your mind as you read through those things. You can say like, okay, for this one, I'm going to use NextAuth. And for this one, I'm going to use Prisma to cover these two. And then for mailer, I'm going to use this node mailer. And then for async tasks, I'm going to use this kind of like another package and so on. And that's fine. And that is the main point I want to say here. If you want to go through that way, then that's absolutely fine for you. But what I want to say is that for a full stack framework to be called a full stack framework, it has to be able to let you do those things out of the box without you worrying about setting it up, learning this new syntax, learning something, how to work with it. And in fact, this is not like a radical idea. This already exists in many different kind of like ecosystems, right? So we have Adonis in the Node.js system, and Adonis is really great. Like with Adonis, you get so many things. You get, like I said before, you get an ORM to basically do everything that you want with your database. You get your auth, and you get bouncer. This is authorization, and this is authentication. You get your fly drive, so connecting to S3, any kind of S3 compliant. You get rate limiting. You get some templating language, which is similar to you writing code, React server components. That's basically the same thing. You get caching, you get validation, you get social logins, and you get internalization, I18N, and you get a mailer, and you get some server-side events, and then obviously if you want, you can get inertia as well. And this is what I definitely call a full stack framework. Out of the gate, you can actually write an absolutely full kind of like service that does everything. And the framework, one, helps you do every single step of the way, and two, has an opinion on how everything should be done. And that's what I really want you to know when you talk about full stack framework, again, I'm not trying to dunk on Next.js. I think what Next.js is doing can be criticized in some ways and than others. I think, from my opinion, I think the direction where React is going is either super visionary, nobody else understands it, or just not good. That's what I think. But regardless of that, as a framework for Next.js, and as for you as a developer, thinking that Next.js is a full stack framework is not a good way to think about full stack work, because there's so much more that a full stack framework offers for you. And if you look at other ecosystem, whether it's the Laravel ecosystem or I think Elixir and Phoenix and all these other ecosystems, that's the standard for a full stack framework to have an opinion on how you do everything else across the stack and to also make it very easy for you to start. So I really recommend that you have a look at Adonis as part of watching this video, and I'll leave a link down in the description below. And you will see that this is just, it is, the development experience with Adonis is absolutely like just a joy, really, because everything just works. There is literally everything that you want out of the box in the same syntax, written by the same people, and I don't have to spend time learning a new way of doing things or learning a new library. I just focus on building my product. And in fact, this is definitely how I built some of the products that I've built, and all the backend and the front end and everything was just written with Adonis this way, because I'm just got super comfortable just writing everything in the same way, and I don't have to worry about figuring out what's the best solution to do things. It just kind of works. And then that's really what the PHP people have been doing for years with Laravel. And the focus is always about shipping and doing things. I don't want to spend time figuring out what's the best package to do this. I just want to get my product done. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.